Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because you're going to learn about 7 skills that are quite, I would say, almost getting to a point to where they're vital to the success of your career and for the success of your organization. And you know what? You're going to be surprised by what these 7 skills entail. Cliff Goldmacher was born in New York, but given that his father was an international marketing executive for Pepsi, among other companies, he spent the first 10 years of his life moving around Southeast Asia in countries including Hong Kong, Japan, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, and Malaysia. Cliff moved back to the U.S. in 1980, and after a little time in the Northeast, moved to Memphis, Tennessee with his family for high school, and then ultimately to Northern California to attend Stanford. Cliff is the oldest of 3 children, which includes his brother Peter and sister Caroline. Cliff's parents, Arthur and Dale, were married for 54 years, and Cliff's father is currently living in New York City. Cliff's mother had always wanted to learn a musical instrument and didn't have the opportunity as a child. So when Cliff showed interest, he was actively supported. Those early piano lessons turned into picking up guitar by ear in college, which led to Cliff's early performance and songwriting efforts. After graduation from Stanford, Cliff spent a year supporting himself as a performer in a small French town in the Provence region, and then in the early 1990s, moved to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue a career as a songwriter. Cliff wrote his first song in college and is still writing. He has been writing songs for 31 years. Besides being a professional songwriter, Cliff is also a music producer with recording studios in Nashville, Tennessee, and Sonoma, California, and as a consultant, working with business teams to help them become better innovators by teaching them how to write songs. Each of these jobs informs the other, which makes each of them work. Cliff has written over 1,000 songs, which have been recorded and performed in dozens of countries by brand new artists, all the way up to his recent collaboration with blues artist Keb Mo on his 2020 Grammy-winning album, Oklahoma. And he is the author of Reasons for the Rhymes. Cliff lives in Sonoma, California with his wife, Sarah, a visual artist. Cliff Goldmacher, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I most certainly am.
Cliff, I'm glad you're here, and we've had a great discussion prior to recording this interview, and I'm hoping we can bring all of that dialogue, into this recording so everybody can experience it. But I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Absolutely, and very specifically, it is my new book, The Reason for the Rhymes. What I love to do is to show business people who tend not to think of themselves as creative that they absolutely are, and I can show them how.
Well, as you say that, you and I talked about this whole creative thinking, which is the foundation to innovation, which a lot of people don't even understand how all of that works. So if you could, maybe give people some insight into how the creative thinking process and innovation and then music kind of interplay with one another.
Well, in my workshops with business teams, one of the things that I started to realize as I was walking them through the songwriting process was initially, I knew there were some benefits right off the bat, improving your creativity, your ability to communicate. But as I started to think about it a little more in depth, I realized that there are essentially 7 skills that you develop as you are learning to write songs. And all of those skills fit neatly under the heading of improving your ability to innovate. So I'll start with the easy one, lateral thinking. The metaphor in songwriting is a way of thinking of any idea differently. You just sort of look at it from a different angle. So your ability to think differently for innovation, critical. Creativity, when you write verses to your songs, you're telling stories. And telling stories is all about making things up. So in these little mini stories that you write in the verses of your songs, you're improving your ability to create. Now, Choruses of songs are totally different. That is where, as I like to indelicately put it, you take the message of your song, you tie it to the end of a baseball bat, and you beat people with it. And that is all about your ability to communicate. So choruses are all about communication. Then there's empathy. And empathy is something that songwriters develop by observing. Songwriters are all observers. They observe the human condition. The more that you observe, the more you put yourself in the place of the person you're observing, and that's empathy. And for innovation, understanding how your innovations are going to connect with people, super important. Then there's collaboration. Co-writing. I've been co-writing for 25 years, and if I've learned anything, it's that good collaborations end up with something better than any one of you could have done on your own. And that's what I love about collaboration. And in an innovative environment, collaboration is key. Then there is the willingness to take risks. And risk-taking is one of those things that I think most people are a little bit averse to. In songwriting, it's the willingness to make yourself vulnerable in what you're writing about that is critical to making songs work. And if you can slowly but surely develop your ability to make yourself vulnerable, you'll be willing to take risks, which will help your ability to try new things, to innovate. And then finally, the diffusion of your ideas. And the parallel in songwriting is a performance. A song that isn't performed doesn't really connect with anybody. In the same way that a great innovation that nobody knows about, I don't know what that does. So the diffusion of your ideas, and especially in an innovative context, is developed by learning to perform. And that's kind of the gist of what it is that I'm talking about in the book.
Well, but as you're talking, and for me, I'm even thinking about what the end outcome is, and I'm thinking about collaborative efforts, and I'm thinking about what many of us who are not in your industry, are kind of know about the process. It's what we see on TV, right? It is what we do experience as an output. But for me, when you're talking, I'm thinking, well, is he talking about lyrics, or is he talking about, the actual notes and, actually, putting the entire piece together? Help me understand that.
Great question. So it is not a given that the people that I will be teaching these workshops to play an instrument or even sing, for that matter. So it's really about lyric writing, but the thing that pulls it together, the little bit of pixie dust, is that when we are done writing the verse and the chorus of the song in the workshop, I ask the attendees, well, what genre of song is this? Is this a blues song? Is it country? Is it folk? Is it hip hop? What is it? Then we put it to music, and I make everybody sing it. And that's when everyone's heads explode. So it's this idea that you take this thing that is essentially just a written lyric, add the music, and that just takes it up to another level. And when I get people who are not comfortable with the idea of singing, and I get it, singing is scary. When I get everybody to sing these things together, first of all, it makes you pay attention because you're scared. But second of all, it puts you in sort of a flow state. And I can go up to people that I have taught this workshop to 5 years ago, and I can say to them, what was the song you wrote? They remember it just like that, because I made them sing it and because they're not used to doing that. So the music is the second part. It's sort of the two in the 1-2 punch of the songwriting exercise.
Okay, so then for me, even when as you're saying that, for me, I'm reflecting upon an experience that I went through where there was a person who was actually at our church who was almost as young age was like a grandmaster organist. I mean, this kid was phenomenal, and has since actually moved to Hollywood because he wanted to be part of writing music scores. So he had some lofty aspirations, and actually I need to find out where he is. But anyway, he sat down and took one song, just a song that everybody knew. And it was during like an open, mic kind of, open community type of thing. And we were just having fun. And he took that song and he made it a rap song. He made it a country song. He made it, a Bach concerto. He took it and put it all in these different things. And it created such a different outcome from that one same source that I think our congregation that ranges from 99 to 9 days, and say 9 months, was able to connect with. It was just...
Yeah, the power of music is really remarkable. And just writing what you're thinking about is already a great start, but it is that combination of the lyrics and the melody and then singing it that really resonates with people. And that's what I love about the combination of the two.
Well, and also too, I mean, as you're saying this, I start thinking about oftentimes when we're attempting to, specifically be, creative and innovative, and we talk about brainstorming and we talk about, that's painful. That's a
Right.
process where this seems like it would bring out significantly greater enjoyment, and probably as a result of that, have greater output if you now take this and convert it, into solving some of your organizational problems.
Well, I think that's it. I think any creative process, if not led properly, can bog down and then just starts to feel like heavy lifting. And goodness knows, in the 30 years that I've been writing songs, I had plenty of time to figure out how to do that, like getting bogged down. So for me, it's all about breaking it down into small pieces that everybody understands and making it fun in a way that doesn't feel intimidating. Because I will tell you this, if you tell a group of executives that you're going to make them write a song, it's bad. It's bad right away. So I do that, and then I immediately follow it with an example of a song that I've written that will sort of fit the style, and they start to understand, oh, okay, wait a minute. And then as I break it down into, well, how is it that you write a verse, or how do you write a chorus? It becomes exciting again. And I had an executive once, I'll never forget this. He came up to me after the workshop. He said, I thought this was going to be the worst day of my professional life. And by the time we were done, he said, and it turns out it was one of the best. And that, to me, that's why I do this. Because it takes something that most people think is either impossible or just is going to make them miserable. And I show them that it's actually just, you take smart people, you give them the tools, we're good here.
Well, and as you're talking, we mentioned beforehand, as far as a lot of the things that we focus in on here is employee experience and customer experience, and impacting all of those so that it creates a lot of value from a lot of different perspectives. Okay, so if I'm thinking about organizations that you've worked with, can you kind of give us an understanding of what it would be like if I wanted to create a song to help me focus more on customer creativity and innovation?
Great. So the thing that I do when I do these workshops is every workshop is based on an issue that a company is currently dealing with. These issues are traditionally speaking, not exactly song material. I'll give you an example. I was working with an airline, a major airline, that was trying to coordinate disparate teams spread out all over the country. So I don't know about you, but singing, coordinating disparate teams. So we ended up writing a song about a flock of geese flying south for the winter called If You've Got My Front, I've Got Your Back. And it's all about how, when you work together, everything gets easier for everyone and you can effectively survive, which is what geese have to do to fly south. And all of a sudden, you've got this sort of sticky, kind of dry issue of coordinating disparate teams, and you've infused emotion and real meaning to it in a way that by the time they were done, they got it. Like they understood, now this is what we're here to do. We're here to protect each other, take care of each other. And it's really gratifying when you can break something down that is essentially just a business topic and make it real for people.
Oh, talking about the whole real part. And I think for many of us, what we look at is things that we learned, we'd like to be able to apply. Also, when we learn them and we apply them, we'd like to be able to repeat it and replicate it, and maybe even scale it, right? So when I'm thinking about your work, and because we're talking about really, and you and I mentioned this, a muscle that they're trying to develop, that creativity muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And for many of us, it's like, whoa, you want me to do what? Heck no, I'm not going to be part of that because I'm not good at that. Getting them to engage is how do we get them to repeat? So it's okay. I showed you how to do some of these things and talk about these skills and how they work in concert. No pun, yes, pun intended.
Right.
Is how do they keep it going once you're gone?
Well, and that is exactly why I wrote the book, because what I realized was I can't be everywhere. And so one of the things that I love, of course, I love being back before the pandemic. I loved being with groups and working with them and connecting with them. And then even online, and I've done it that way too. Great. But I can't be everywhere. So what I've done in the book, because I can't create a new song for people who are reading my book, I found the solution, which was using sort of great old songs in what we call the public domain, songs that have been around like America the Beautiful or My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, songs where you already know the melody. So, everybody knows da 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 da. So you've got your melody, and now I give you the exercises to fit your lyrics inside of that melody. So even without me, you can continue whatever your issue is that you're trying to convert into a song. I give you the steps, and I also have the built-in melodies waiting for you.
Yeah, and so the book does. It's like it's a workbook.
Yeah, effectively it is.
Active, engaging, workbook. So I'm curious to know, have you had a scenario where you have done work and then an organization started, incorporating this, into more than just the group that you worked with, and it became, something that the overall organization started using as something that drives their purpose and their actions and their activities?
Wow, nothing would make me happier if that were the case. I wish everybody would at least take the time to examine their ideas laterally, differently, because I think that there's just so much potential there for new thinking, for innovation, and for thinking about things that, the way that I've heard it put is, if you're constantly using the same set of tools to solve problems, you're kind of always going to get the same answers. But if you use a different set of tools, and that's effectively what I'm proposing, you're in line for some new answers.
Well, I think it goes back to the whole skill set and being able to develop the risk-taking, being able to do a lot of those things, because I think, you're right. And that's one of the reasons, and I mentioned on the show, is on the Fast Leader Show, I've had 20 plus guests that have talked about, innovation and and if you open up to creative thinking, we're probably, even more than that. But everybody has different perspectives. Some approach it very much from a, scientific and analytical perspective and a human behavior. And it's quite amazing to see. Some of it take it from a product development perspective. So there's these different viewpoints that I think for us, you almost have to, it's kind of like, go into a buffet, right? Try them all.
Yeah, I think so. And as I was writing the book, I had sort of what I like to refer to as my dark night of the soul as I was writing the book, which was, once I realized that all of these skills that songwriting helps you develop fit under the heading of innovation, I had this moment where I thought, what do I know about innovation? And then I stopped and I thought two things. One, my entire career is predicated on innovation. Every song that I write is a mini innovation. I have to do something slightly different than what's been done before. And the way I like to put this is, if you're writing songs in the hopes that they will get recorded by a recording artist, you're not only competing against every song that's being written now, but every song that has ever been written ever, which, don't look at those odds too closely or you won't get in my line of work. But for me, it made me realize I've been innovating since I wrote my first song. And then even on a macro level, to have a career in the arts of any kind, for me, having a career in music for 30 years, you have to constantly reinvent yourself. You can't, in my industry, there are very, very few thoroughbreds, very few people who do one thing, do it so well that they not only can't, but won't do anything else and make a living at that. For the rest of us, the rank and file in the music world, we have to constantly reinvent ourselves and figure out what it is that my guiding principle, to back up, is how do I get up every day and do something that has to do with music? And if I can answer that question, I'm moving forward. And so back to my dark night of the soul, once I stopped for a second and realized I've been innovating since the first day I decided to make songwriting a career, it was easy after that.
Well, and as you're talking and looking at your bio, and you and I even talked about the way that we construct bios on the Fast Leader Show, and I told you, I said, you'll probably never go to another podcast that'll ask you for a bio like ours, because we want to connect with you and understand you as a person, because it's that makes what you do great. So for me, as you're talking, and we're talking about perspectives, and we're talking about creative thinking, I go back to the whole youth scenario and you living in these different cultures. So I have to ask you, have you been able to really look and see how those influences have really helped, with your ability to be more creative thinking in your music?
Oh, I think it's essential to what I do. I think that before I even knew that I was doing this, I was basically shown that the world is a big place with lots of different ways of doing things and lots of different ways of thinking about things. And I didn't have to be told that. Every year and a half, I went into a new culture and saw different ways to do it. And talk about formative. That was just quite possibly the best thing that could have happened. And we all loved doing it. As a family, we all genuinely enjoyed the travel and the new countries and the new experiences. So the whole thing was absolutely a big part of why I do what I do today.
Well, even so, okay. So, and then as you said that, it kind of triggered me too. Your mother always had the desire,
Right.
So, what was the music development and creation and all that encouraged in the home, even though she didn't have that
Oh, absolutely.
lessons?
Yeah. So for me, as I said, I think my mom always as a kid had wanted to learn to play piano, and she did some as an adult. But then when it became clear that I was interested in music, there was always a piano in the house, right? So as I started to play around with it, and as it became clear that I was interested, my mom was just wonderfully supportive. And, there were piano lessons, and it was not just the lessons, but I will tell you in all sincerity, every time I sit down to play piano, there is somebody who says, I used to play piano and I quit and I wish I hadn't. And it is 100%, because kids are kids, right? I wanted to quit. It is 100% because my mom was, in her own firm but kind way, not willing to let me quit, that I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'll be eternally grateful.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So you start talking about all of this work, the requirement, like you had mentioned, of having to pivot and, do your own, creative, actions and continue to go through that process. I know, obviously, through music and many other things, there's a lot of inspiration that we have to seek in order to keep going forward. And one of the things that we use on the show in order to help be inspired, of course, song is one of them. Yes, but quotes are easier for us to focus in on the show. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes, because in any career, certainly in music, it can feel so overwhelming what you have to do or what you have to overcome. My favorite quote is, eat the elephant one bite at a time. And something about that for me just makes what was for many years just an daunting, to the point of almost inaction at times, set of goals manageable. I realized that I could just take this, and usually for creatives, it's not the creative part that's the daunting part. It's making a living doing it. That's the part that scares us. It's the exact opposite of business people who make a living. I got that. Don't ask me to be creative, but I can make a living. It's exactly the opposite for creatives. We are moved to do this thing, but we don't understand, or it just feels so overwhelming how to make that a business, a living. And so for me, eating the elephant one bite at a time just made that possible for me.
Well, I think, what do they say? There's a reason the phrase starving artists exists is because they are.
Yeah, and I am firmly a non-believer that has to be the case. And I feel like I wish more artists understood that one informs the other. Meaning, write what moves you. Don't ever not write what moves you, but understand that if you want to continue to be able to do that, you have to do this. You have to run a business, and it is a business. And I struggled with it. We all do on some level. But at some point I realized, well, if I'm going to be serious about this and I want to keep doing this, I just have to figure it out.
I think that's a great point. And, but coming to that realization thing, and when sometimes we, lack to make the decisions that we need to, or we make ones that we shouldn't. And, there's times where we've had to get over the hump, and a lot of others can learn from that. We share those on the show. Is there a time where you've gotten over the hump that you can share?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, I had been living in Nashville at this point for close to 15 years. And in Nashville, sort of the currency is whether a major label artist has recorded one of your songs. And at 15 years in, after writing songs for all that time, without anything sort of above the surface for people to sort of recognize, a major label artist finally recorded one of my songs. And it was just this moment of, okay, after all of this time of essentially toiling in relative obscurity, to have that finally happen was an acknowledgement that I had been on the right track, even without the confirmation that this ultimate recognition provided. It's a big relief, I can tell you that.
So Cliff, I have to ask, can you share that? Can you share?
Oh, absolutely. There was an artist named Ronan Tynan, an Irish tenor, and he recorded a song that I wrote with my friend Jeff Cohen called The Light Inside of You. And my favorite part is we made the demo, one vocalist and a piano, sent it to him. He was on Universal Records, and they recorded the song with him and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And it was just jaw-dropping. It was a great reward for 15 years of patience, and not so much patience at times.
Yeah, I can imagine. Good for you. But when I think about the book, when I think about, you had mentioned something about, the COVID, and now we have this proximity issue and can't be close. When I think about organizations taking this and building those creative skills and that muscle, so that they can actually, get even more value out of it, I start thinking about, you probably thinking about, goals that you have. Is the one you can share?
Goals going forward?
Yes.
There are so many, and the thing is that there are some that I don't know that I'm going to have until I'm a little further down the road. But ultimately, for me at this point, I feel like once I connected with this idea of using songwriting to help people innovate, my goal is to spread the word. And, that's been what's been really taking up the majority of my emotional and actual physical time these days, is figuring out how to share this message. And that's why, Jim, I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, and the honor's mine. And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Cliff, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. And I'm going to ask you several questions. And your job is to give us a robust, yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Cliff Goldmacher, are you ready to hoedown?
I am ready.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
So for me, I think the thing that I struggle with is big picture strategy. I'm good on the tactics, strategy. I have to remind myself.
And what is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
I had a co-writer once say to me, stop squeezing so hard on this thing, just let it happen. So for me, don't squeeze so hard, even if something, especially if something is important to you. Just relax and things will happen much better for you.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I have learned over the years that since I am self-employed and running my own business, I have to jealously guard my motivation. My motivation basically powers everything. So I have to make absolutely certain that nothing diminishes my desire to keep moving forward.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success? And I just asked that, and let me ask you another one. And what is one of your tools that you believe helps you in business or life?
So for me, I am a worker bee. My willingness to do the work, I think, is one of my secrets. Now, to my earlier admission, because I'm a worker bee and a tactical guy, I have to remind myself about strategy. But as far as one of the things that keeps me moving forward and is my best tool, it's my willingness to do the work.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend? And it could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to The Reason for the Rhymes on your show notes page as well.
Thank you. So for me, Mastery by George Leonard is a book that talks all about what it means to be a master and how important the journey itself is, as opposed to achieving any one particular goal. So Mastery by George Leonard.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Cliff Goldmacher. And let me spell that for you. It's Goldmacher. Okay, Cliff, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I would absolutely remind myself to enjoy the journey. I think for me, I came to the ultimate realization much later that a career in songwriting is a life and not just a means of making a living or winning an award. So once I started to understand this is not what I do, this is who I am, it allowed me to just enjoy every step along the way as opposed to waiting for whatever these milestones were that I imagined would be out there to make me happy. The moment I figured out that it was the journey that made me happy, I was good.
Cliff, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. And thank you, Jim. TheReasonForTheRhymes.com is the best way to find me.
Cliff Goldmacher, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And the Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.